Welcome to Rebel Radio, conversations with allied health leaders about the careers that shaped them. Not the bio, the backstory. Today I'm here with Dr. OZ Yalcin, clinical psychologist, director of ANIMA Health Network and Australian Psychologist of the Year for 2024. He's known internationally for his work in schema therapy, trauma and neurodivergence, and he developed the Young Schema Questionnaire revised, now used in therapy rooms around the world. But that is just the bio. Dr. Oz, welcome to Rebel Radio.
Thanks. Oh, it's a real pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
I'm
how you been?
looking forward to it. Yeah, really good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite.
No problems. We obviously know each other from going to Allied Health Network and series events, and we've obviously caught up outside of that as well. But and I know you told me a bit about your story as well, and I think it's just a fantastic story from from your beginnings to where you are now. And I think all allied health professionals who would listen to this show or watch the show will really gain a lot out of this. So I really wanted you to join us. I really do appreciate you being on here. Actually, I did want to do something real quick. So we had Lauren Hart on the last show, and her question for you, is real or rebel? AI will fundamentally change the allied health role and landscape within the next 5 years, and people don't know about it.
Definitely.
Yeah, real?
Real.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
It already is. We have AI integrated throughout the whole clinic.
Yeah.
When we talk about, taking session notes or making reports easier to write or streamline those things. Even things like helping us, tidy up policies and procedures and so many other functions.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of feel like I was using AI before it was cool. But in terms of allied health, for sure.
Yeah.
And I suppose I don't think that it's going to take over anybody's job.
No.
But I think if we use it correctly and ethically, it can be a real help.
Yeah.
Fill some little gaps here and there for when, for the stuff that we can't do, even in between sessions.
It's like a tool, isn't it? It's like a powerful, very powerful tool.
For sure. As long as people use it ethically and are transparent and all that kind of thing, then absolutely it'll absolutely be a game changer.
Yeah. No, awesome. All right, cool. So before we talk about what you do now and what your role is, what your day-to-day life is as well, I want to kind of go back and find out the backstory about yourself. Okay, so what was life like before allied health even kind of entered the picture? What was life like when you were young and growing up?
Okay. So I don't know where to even begin. It's a very open question.
Where do you want to go with it?
Well, I don't know. I suppose. Up until 15 years ago or something like that, I didn't even know what allied health was. So, when I think about my family, so we immigrated to Australia when I was about 4, from Turkey.
Yeah. And
it wasn't the easiest road. We moved over here because my grandfather was unwell, and then we sort of when we all moved here, there was I think nine of us living in a house, or 10 of us living in a house, like my uncles and aunties, and which in some ways is kind of really cool.
Yeah, I know,
but not for the right reasons.
Did they come with you as well?
We were the last sort of.
Right, so they came before you guys.
Yeah. So they were here for a while, and then my mum had me when she was really young, she was like 17, and then a couple of years later had my younger sister as well.
Yeah.
But things were not that great back then, and it was kind of really hard when we got here as well. So we essentially grew up in poverty.
Yeah.
But I was always very curious about things, so I'd always wanted to know about stuff, and when I was like, I think, I don't know, maybe 6, I wanted to be a doctor, right? That was the thing that I really wanted to do. And, I was, my sort of later primary school, they had this series, that you'd get at the newsagent, like how my body works. So you'd get like the book, and then it'll have an organ, and it'll tell you about the organ, and you'll get a little piece.
Okay.
Like you'll get the organ, and basically, over however many weeks and whatever, you end up building a full, a man, right, with all of the organs and bones and everything in it, which took ages, but it was great. I was like, I'm sold on this.
So was health always like kind of like you had a bit of a?
I was really interested in that.
Really
interested in that. This is so weird, but this came to mind. I know. actually asked my mum to take us to the butcher so I could buy a cow's heart so I could cut it open to see what it looked like inside.
She's probably what she's thinking.
I think I was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So weird. Anyway,
Yeah, it'd be pretty interesting to see. Yeah, if I asked my son would come, can I have a cow heart from the butcher? I'm like,
So
what do you
weird.
want to do with it?
Yeah.
But you're just interested in it. Were you just
yeah,
interested in, like,
just
what
really
was
curious
what
about
was
stuff and.
Yeah.
But in terms of like going to school and stuff, like it was hard because we had immigrant parents and so we weren't really monitored or any of that type of thing, and life wasn't easy for a long time. But if you fast forward a little bit, was doing okay academically for a bunch of years. Okay, I was in high school, and I think it was year nine. I think the wheels started to fall off a little bit, and then I ended up finishing high school in year 10.
Right.
So then I finished, and then started working as a kitchen hand and doing all kinds of different sort of hospitality jobs.
Yeah.
And then that was my life for a long time. Like, so I worked in hospitality.
Yeah.
This is growing up in Sydney, by the way.
Okay. When did you move to Sydney then?
So when I was 4 or 5. So
Okay, so
we
you came to
immigrated to Sydney.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And then Perth was later on.
Right.
And so, so I mean, I tried at school, but I found my report card actually the other day, like the high school certificate, the year 10 one.
Yeah.
And it was just like C, D, C, C.
That's like mine.
and 1A.
Yeah. What was that?
1A, home economics.
Yeah, right.
I could cook, baby. I could cook.
That's so good.
And then I think during that time, you got up to a bunch of mischief and
What were you like as a like? What would you say your personality was? If I met you or you met yourself at that age, what would you describe yourself as?
Oh, like late teens kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. Like early in high school, I went to a really, really rough high school at the beginning. Like I was actually scared to go to school because it was like gangs and shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. But then we moved. Ended up moving in with my uncle and auntie, and they lived in a nicer end of town. So I ended up going high school. In a nicer suburb, still a public school, but but I didn't have a huge amount of friends until maybe year 9 or something like that, and then sort of ended up becoming more popular, and then so I guess if you answer your question, I reckon we could have been buddies then for sure.
Yeah,
right?
probably.
Yeah, for sure. Like played a lot of sport, but I did like I said, get up to a fair bit of mischief. Stuff that I probably shouldn't have been, but
And you obviously, like, because you hadn't gone a typical pathway, right? So you've gone down hospitality, right? And what did that, like, what were you doing in hospitality? Like, how long were you in that for, and what was a shift to move into like university?
Well, so like basically I worked in hospitality all the way up until I was 27 or 28.
Yeah.
So when I was about 25, I made the decision to move to Perth.
Yeah.
And that was a big decision because life wasn't.
Yeah, why'd you do that?
Life was
no
good.
one comes from like over east to Perth, right? So what was the reason for that?
Well, I suppose like there were some wild years there, like for my early, like 20s and stuff like that. It was I worked in high-end nightclubs and all that kind of stuff, and it was a lot of fun. But also there were some things there that just wasn't they weren't good for me, and so I made the decision to come to Perth, and so I remember.
Sorry, just to cut you off. Have you been to Perth beforehand?
No.
So this is like out of like I'm just gonna go to Perth.
No, I didn't know anybody. I was just like, this is just something that has to happen.
Right.
Why
Perth?
intuitive.
Well? What was that? Not Melbourne or anything else? Like,
well, I'd kind of spent a bit of time in Queensland and been to Adelaide and a couple of things, and I was just like, I'm just gonna do this thing. Like I'm just gonna go.
Wow.
And so I arrived, and I had I think I had $400 in a suitcase.
Wow.
And then my first home was at Billabong Backpackers on Beaufort Street. Yeah. And so I was essentially homeless for like well, homeless, but well, homeless, because I didn't have an address. So,
Wow.
So started there, and then like ended up finding a job, which was fortuitous, working in a bar and whatever, and then worked, found somewhere to live. It was really fortunate, as I'm thinking about this now, you have these people that kind of come into your life, even if it's temporary. And I know this one person, there was like I was looking for a room to rent, in a shared place, and like I didn't even have enough money for the bond, and so I was just like, oh look, can I sort of pay the bond off, as we, and she was like, yeah, we can do that. So I was like, this is amazing, right? So then I ended up actually having a permanent address for a while, and then so I did in hospitality for that whole time and beyond. I started working in a cafe. I was there for a few years. And, I won't go into the details, but, really good relationship with the people that owned it and all that kind of thing. And, there were some promises made that didn't sort of come through, which was really disappointing. And that was the turning point for me. I was just like, I need to do something that where I'm kind of in control of my own destiny. And I thought, what could I do? And I thought, fuck, I wonder if I'm smart enough to go to uni. So I was just like, well, I'll go and have a look. So I did this. So I did this like stat testing. You had to do a stat test, like a 3-week crash course, and whatever the year 12 equivalent thing would look like.
And how long does that take?
It was like 3 weeks.
Oh, 3 weeks.
So like once a week for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then you put in like your choices of what you want, and then you go and do the test, and somehow I passed it, which was good. It's just like, okay, cool. And I put in for 2 things, so marine biology and psychology. Psychology, obviously, because I'm really interested in people and wanted to, continue with that curiosity.
Yeah.
But marine biology, because I love the ocean. So when I was in Sydney, I used to surf every day.
Yeah, right,
I loved it. Like, It was just my life blood.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, well, if I can't be doing people, then I'll be,
in water.
doing fish.
Yeah, literally. That's so good though. Like, and did you how did you go into psych from there?
Well, then it was just kind of like, well, what is any real career prospects?
Yeah.
What are they going to what's it really going to look like? And I thought, well, I'll do psychology. And so I started that at Curtin. Mm-hmm. And as a mature age student, it was really hard because it was like basically needing to, pay for rent and pay for your food and stuff, and then also study full time. Like, so for the first year and a half, I was like freaking studying full time, working full time, and I nearly died. Like, it was so much.
I was going to say, how did was that decision influenced by anyone, or was that all yourself?
No, that was me.
Yeah. There's no one that you thought, oh, that person's a psychologist and that would be cool, or no, it was all yourself.
It was just kind of like, yes, like the thing that I've learned over the years is just like, if I have to always trust my gut, always trust my instinct. Yeah. And if I do that, then I know I'll be all right.
When did you learn that? Because I'm sure I feel the same, right, with that. And I feel like I learned that a bit later on, maybe like 25-ish, around that age.
Yeah, I guess that kind of maybe really solidified it when I made the decision to move to Perth. That was a big decision. I was like, I need to do this. This is the thing that has to happen. So anyway, fast forward. I studied abroad for a year and a half because I was just like, how do I get away from this situation that I'm in? Because it's like fucking too much. I can't cope with it. Yeah. Plus, I always wanted to go overseas. Yeah. So
where'd you go?
So I studied in Toronto for a year. A year. Yeah. I did 2 semesters over there, which was awesome. I loved it.
We lived in Toronto for a couple of years.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Whereabouts?
We lived on Young and Bloor Street.
Right in the middle. I went to Ryerson.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Literally right there.
Yeah, literally right there. It's really cool. I think
that's insane.
Yeah. Because
loved it.
It's such a cool place.
I love that city.
Yeah, so good. How long did you live there for?
Well, it was just like basically that year. Mm-hmm. So I just traveled around a little bit.
So you stayed there for a year. So
but what I needed to do. So by that stage, I'd kind of like made enough money, and enough money to buy a car and all that kind of stuff, and buy some furniture and all the rest of it. But before I went, I had to then sell everything so that I could afford to do it. And so I did that, and when I came back, then this was like this. I would have been in the second semester or something. No? Yeah, something like that. Or, there are some other stories associated, but we can talk about that another time. But basically, like when I came back, I was like literally homeless again. So I didn't have any money because I had to sell everything, and then starting uni again, and then I didn't have a place to live anymore, and so that kind of started again, and I was basically like again fucking so poor for up until I started working. I started my registrar program, like where we could actually start earning money, and that was like after clinical masters. So it was like another 4 years or something
Wow.
like that. So fortunately, you know, that was only for 5 or 6 weeks, and then a buddy of mine's like, hey, I've got a room that you can.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful. And then so like going into like to get into the clinical program, I didn't even know that I needed to do that. Like that was a thing that had to happen. Because in psych, at least then and even kind of now, you know, they don't tell you like what needs to happen, right? And so,
Why not? Why don't they?
well, they do, but they tell you late, and then you know, and then by the time you know, it's you know, by the time you know that you have to essentially finish with first class honors and do it on honors year, fourth year, and like finish with ridiculous marks to even have a look in. They're telling you this stuff in third year or whatever. So
is that a flaw? Or do you think that's
so they're revising the whole thing at the moment.
Okay.
But anyway, managed to you know, work my guts out. And,
Yeah.
you know, just sort of, you know, but it was really interesting, right? I did finish with first class honors somehow, and then I didn't get a single offer from a uni, not a single offer. And I put in for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 unis around Australia. Didn't get a single offer.
Why's that?
Don't know.
There's no reason,
Don't
or
know.
like
No, but I can tell you, it's ultra competitive, right? And there's so few spots. So, you know, for each university, there might be, you know, between 12 and 16 spots. And you've got hundreds of people around Australia applying for, you know, the limited amount of... so anyway...
so just on that one, how did, because, you know, there'll be people who might be going through that process right now, or there might be people who want to go down this pathway and they find themselves they're stuck in this. What happens if they don't get into a uni because of that? Yeah,
so at the moment, like at the moment, what they've introduced more recently is like a fifth year, like a 5+1. So it's easier to get into that, and then you know, do 1 year of supervised practice after that, and then you can work as a generally registered psych. So it's a clinical program. That's the ultra competitive one.
Yeah, sure.
And so again, this is another one of those. You know, I listened to a podcast by Todd Sampson. I would really encourage you. He's a really interesting guy. And Will, what's his name? Will Anderson. And he's talking about nodes, right? So in your life, you might have different people come into your life at different times. I mentioned it before. And you might see them again or you might not, right? But those people have come in and they've had a significant impact on your life in some way. And so I had another one of those when I decided to go to like the Murdoch University, you know, clinic showing thing. One of my other friends got in. They're like, "You want to come?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come along." You know, I ended up speaking to the head of the program, and I was talking about like neuromodulation stuff, which is what I did my thesis on. Anyway, and she was right into the neuro stuff, so we got chatting, and anyway, I then emailed her and I said, "Look, you know, if there's any, you know, if anyone sort of drops out, if there's any opportunity, please, you know, I'd love to hear about it." Like, you know, this is just before Christmas. Anyway, nothing. And I thought, I'm fucked. so anyway, it's like end of January. I sent her another email and I said, "Look, you know, obviously there's, you know, I'm just following up, you know, about a good Christmas, all that sort of thing, and would love to know if there's anything." And she then emailed back and she said, "Well, actually, somebody has sort of pulled out or has changed, and then I can offer you a full fee paying spot." Right. And I was just like, it was kind of like bittersweet because I'm like, I can't afford that. Like, I can't afford a full fee paying spot. So I was like, "Thank you, that's very nice, but I can't afford that." So I was like,
Yeah, absolutely.
But then she emailed me the next day and said, "There's a government supported spot available, and it's yours." And I was just like,
that's insane.
Fuck, that's amazing, man. Like, that's amazing. And so, and then the semester started like literally like a week later.
Yeah.
You know.
So you're into it straight away. Like.
Yeah, like it was just like, this is now happening, right?
Yeah.
And so.
Wow. How are you feeling? Like, I mean, obviously you feel like it'd be such a whirlwind of emotions, right? So what were you, I want to also ask this as well, like what were your, because obviously being a mature age and going from like hospitality and like, I guess, you know, from, you know, not even knowing if you're going to pass year 12 to like, am I smart enough type thing, to then go into like psych. What were people saying? Like, you know, your family, were they like, did they think you could do it as well? Or did you like not really care, or people around you? What were they saying?
That's a good question. I didn't, So family of my mum and stuff have always. My dad was, he stayed in Turkey. So, but mum and that was always encouraging and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they were in Sydney and I was over here, so I was living a different life.
Absolutely. So they can't understand exactly how
yeah.
it's working, right? Yeah.
And so, but yeah, no, they were proud and
Yeah.
and all of those things. And of course, the friends that I made over here, well, they didn't know any different.
Yeah, true.
So
Yeah, interesting.
yeah, so it was just kind of like, wow. And honestly, I didn't know I had first class. I didn't know I finished first class honours until graduation day, which is when they gave us the things,
Right, so
and then we're sitting in line, to go up to get whatever, but you get the transcripts. It was only I opened the transcript and then there was like 81% or something. So I didn't even know before that.
Wow.
So that was a moment. I was just like, fuck, that was a moment.
How does that feel? Because I mean, like, especially coming dropping out of year 10, right? And I finished high school as well, so I didn't go through uni or anything like that. But like, I'd probably be in the same boat of like, I'm probably not that smart or that academic in that way. So when that moment happened, after you've gone through that through everything you've gone through, and you saw that, what was the?
Oh, it was
how'd you feel?
Disbelief. Yeah, disbelief. Yeah, it was just it was
yeah.
Like, fuck.
Did it make you feel as well that you could just do anything you put your mind to in a way? In that moment? Because it would have been like, I've done all this and I've gone back and I've hit this as well.
It's really interesting, and I think in the context, I'll talk about ADHD in a bit, but like, which I didn't know anything about back then. I think that moment was probably the most special, like undergraduate graduation. And then I think subsequent ones after that, they were important, but they weren't as special
that was
as that.
The one, that was like a...
that was a big one.
Yeah, I could imagine that too.
Yeah.
I guess on this as well, like, did being like a bit older and a bit more mature make the academic side of things easier for you?
I think it made how important it was more real. Yeah. Because later, like when I reflected on that and other times, honestly, I was literally in survival mode. Like there was no option. It was like this is it. This is going to work.
Yeah, it has to.
So there's no like, will this or not? This is like, this is it.
Yeah.
Right. And so then it's just like everything that happens after that is it, right?
Yeah.
And I realized that later, after I didn't need to be in survival mode, that I still was. But I suppose when I think about my whole life, like that's a state that I've been in for my entire life, right?
Interesting.
But there was no choice when it came to that. It was just like, this has to happen.
Yeah.
So I think as a mature age student, you take it more seriously. Like you're. That maybe I'm being too generalist because I think younger people would also take it seriously because they want to have their careers. But I suppose when you chuck in things like needing to pay for your own way and pay for rent and food and all that stuff, you really, I think, take it a lot more seriously. Like, there's more gravity to it.
Absolutely.
Maybe,
Yeah, that's really interesting actually. So you've graduated. So you now you've
did finish the masters.
Finished the masters. And
then I did a really stupid thing after that.
What'd you do?
Then I did a PhD after that.
Do you regret that now?
No. But it was
why did you do the PhD? What was the reason?
Well,
for that?
I don't know, man. Like, and me and numbers and maths and stuff, not that great. Like, and then I end up doing a PhD that is like 80% statistics, right? Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Just like, what the hell? Anyway, as it turns out, like during the master's thesis, we had to do a research project. And so I did a research project using rash analysis, which was like this, kind of new modern statistical thing. And then, my supervisor then was Chris Lee, and he's a very well-known person in schema therapy in EMDR. I've got all the respect for him. And so he and Helen as well, Helen Correa, then as well, and she's an amazing human too. And so we did. So I did this this thing, and it was on the YSQ, right? And it was just kind of like a little study on it. I'm like, this is actually really interesting, right? And schema therapy and stuff. And then I thought, I'll see if we can get a scholarship for a PhD, right? Because then they can because I'm like interested, I might continue, but it means I can still work and all that kind of stuff. So it's not
Give some options, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't actually even know why I wanted to do that, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was there, and then so I applied for the scholarship, didn't get it. I think 6 months later, applied for it again, didn't get it. And then just before I graduated, like for masters, applied for it again, and apparently there's some rules around like you can only work like 6 hours and blah blah.
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
So I'm like, well, fuck, I need to earn some money, but I'll throw my hat in the ring anyway. Applied for it, got it, and then I told them I don't want it because it meant that I had to restrict how many hours I worked. And then later on, I found out that people were like, "Oh, you can just work whatever. They don't care." I'm like, "Oh fuck, it was really helpful, right?" But anyway, so I did it part time, and it took me about 7 or 8 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, until I finished it. And I probably finished it about maybe 3 years ago now. I think it will be.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It is a long time.
When you think about like over the whole journey of that,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a fucking long time.
What-
It's traumatizing.
Obviously, there might be people who are listening to this don't know about schema therapy.
Yeah.
Do you want to just explain that real quickly, just to
Yeah.
give it a
Yeah,
summary?
yeah. Like schema therapy is a great a great therapeutic intervention, especially working with like complex presentations. And I think we were talking about the YSQ before. You were asking me about the YSQR, and so then that's kind of like the assessment tool they use for measuring early maladaptive schemas, which are like those early life patterns that can become maladaptive in certain environments and situations.
Yeah.
And so this questionnaire is what they use to identify, how people see themselves, other people in the world, and if they are, and those patterns are essentially lifelong, and they can get triggered at different under different circumstances. But as a child, they can be really adaptive because they help survival.
Yeah.
But as an adult, they become less helpful, right?
Okay.
So, like for example, if you environment that is volatile and sort of abusive and all that type of thing, you might develop a mistrust abuse schema, right? Where you think people have ulterior motives if they're being nice to you. You can't trust people, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so as a child that makes sense because you're like, well, mistrusting people makes perfect sense, so I can keep myself safe. But as an adult, of course, you think about what the foundations of important relationships or any relationships is like trust and all that kind of thing. And if you can't trust people, and if these things get triggered when there's a slight, sort of interpersonal indiscretion or something like that, it can be hugely problematic because then that person might cut you off and like, what the hell's going on? And right, so it can be really isolating. So the questionnaire is something that measures those constructs from childhood to help adults. And
That's awesome. Really interesting, isn't it? Really interesting. I think just in case people didn't know. They probably do. Probably just me that doesn't know about it. To be fair, so
there'd be a lot of people that don't know that. Psychs would know about schema therapy, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyone other than psychs would really know about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So early career. So what was your first year in the workforce like? I mean, obviously you've done the PhD as well, but when did you kind of get into the workforce like officially as for doing your degree?
So what happens after you finish your masters is you do a clinical registrar program, which is another 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's being supervised by a board-approved supervisor for 2 years. And my first gig was at Hollywood Private Hospital, where I worked with veterans with PTSD. So we did we were in different groups for veterans with PTSD and also police, fireys, and first responders. Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. We had a really good crew. It was it was interesting. Yeah, it was great, and I learnt a lot. And it was in a private psychiatric hospital. I did some inpatient work as well there, and it was there were some things that kind of were going on there that kind of triggered me to pursue other interests. And one of those was at a different hospital. And so I think I'd been working for about a year as a registrar, maybe a little bit more, and then an opportunity came up at a different psychiatric hospital to be in a leadership role, in a management role, where I was like the therapy manager of this hospital. Yeah.
And how many years was that after you were at the
hospital?
was
2 years. No, that was a year. So I went from that hospital. So you wouldn't that's not a typical trajectory.
Right.
But
Why
I
do you
don't
think
do things in halves.
Yeah,
And so
no,
I'm like,
exactly.
fuck it. I'm
I'm
doing
going
it.
it. Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I'm completely underqualified for this, but
Why do you think you got the job then? Like, obviously you would have applied, and
well, they had that kind of another veterans program over there.
Yeah.
This I was just up here at the Marion Centre, and
Yeah.
so they had their own sort of PTSD program, and I've got like obviously a ton of knowledge and understanding of how those programs work, and
Right.
and working in inpatient, and I had managed sort of like hospitality venues and stuff before.
Right. So you had that management skill set.
Yeah, so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, we'll give it a go. And so,
Yeah, awesome.
so I started that, and it was during that time I was like, okay,
So what year were you? Was this when you transitioned from into that team lead role?
So that would have been probably, I reckon, about 2018. I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I did that, I was obviously halfway through the PhD, and and then I was there 3 days a week, kind of thing, doing that. It was more obviously because
Of course,
so,
yeah.
and then I started to do private practice 1 day a week as well.
Okay.
And so I think I'd just started private practice just before I'd gone over there. But honestly, back then it was like you had to work hard to get the trust of GPs and stuff like that. So I had to go and do my own marketing, go to the GP clinics, and please give me a.
Is it still like that now? Like, was that a different time?
That was back then, and that was pretty typical back there. And I think things changed after COVID, big time.
Right.
But then they kind of went back a little bit, to a little bit like back then.
Yeah.
After COVID.
Okay.
But I was just doing 1 day a week. Like, it took me literally over 6 or 8 months to get like a full day.
Right,
Like
okay.
6 or 7 patients. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then I was doing the PhD, and so I was doing that for a while, and then I was like, hey, what year is it? 2026. This might have been closer to 2019, maybe 19,
Okay. Yeah.
20, something like that. So, and it was at that point where I was just like, I hit a bit of a wall. I was just like, I can't do any PhD work. Like, I was struggling to do any paperwork, like at the hospital, struggling to, do my notes for my patients. And I was just like clinically it was great. It was, but when it came to like all of that other stuff, I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with you, right? Like, so I was like completely stumped, and then,
Was like we just like scattered in a way. Like, was
no, it
not
was just
scattered,
like,
but
it was just like it was like a wall. My brain just stopped. It was just like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you, right? And I couldn't push through like I normally would push through.
Yeah.
And so, I was just like, what could this be? And I think my wife and I were in bed one night doing a questionnaire, which is called the ASRS, which is like a screener for ADHD. And so we're there and we're sort of like ticking away, laughing, ha ha ha, ADHD. Yeah, it's just a screener, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, then I thought, well, I'm not going to do anything about that because, there was a lot of kind of fear of stigma of being impaired or seen as being impaired, and thought it could negatively affect my career or referrals and things like that. And anyway, so I struggled through it for another 6 months, and I was just like, fuck, I can't do it anymore. So, the hospital, I spoke to a colleague of mine, and she was amazing, actually. She's like an expert in ADHD. So I was like, I want to speak to you about a patient about ADHD. She's like, oh yeah. I'm like, it's me. And she's like, come on over. No, come and sit down. We like started having a chat. She's like, go and do these things. And anyway, then I started. She's like, yeah, you've definitely got ADHD. And I was just like, okay. And I started stimulant medication, and it was a huge game changer for me. But really, the important thing about it was it actually put the rest of my life into perspective. Like, I was just like, fuck, I know why. I can see why life was like that for, like, why I'd be so like, doing this or that, or, high school, that kind of thing. And
how do you feel now after that? I guess after that, and there'll be people who watch, again, the people watching this would be thinking the same thing too, right?
Yeah. Look, after that, I was like, well, I don't want people to feel like that. They should, especially in healthcare, or especially in like, in these kind of, in allied health, or in any kind of setting. Like, if they should never feel like that, that it's an impairment.
Yeah.
Or that they should be stigmatized. So I made it a real point to actually speak about it openly, in the hope that it would help other people feel okay with also going and, getting an assessment, whether it's, that or whether it's something else, just seeking support, right? That's the most important part.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, because back then there was a lot of stigma and, it felt like it. I think there is still now,
Yeah.
but stigma in a different way. It's almost like it's done a 180, where it's like, oh, you're an ADHD person, or, right? Because there's like a billion TikTok videos
100%,
and all the rest of it. So then people are like almost more, afraid to say they have ADHD because of that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's been a really interesting kind of pendulum swing. But yeah, like I think, if it's something you're curious about, do an assessment, but do it with people who are experts at it, because they'll be able to tease out things that are that or not that.
You mentioned how like it kind of put your life into perspective in a lot of ways, and then you're like looking back at high school and looking about certain things. How so? Like, how did that kind of like? What were the things that that kind of made sense to you?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So, like, I suppose, I think about like high school and think about like transition periods, and I see this in our patients, and it's really important diagnostically to understand this stuff. Like, and you see that stuff happen for people at important academic or life transition periods, especially like academic. So like people going from year 10 to year 12, people with ADHD tend to be pretty intelligent people, right? Maybe not socially sometimes, but they can get by, right? So you can get by and learn through osmosis. You still get all the things. If there's abstract stuff, like I'm not saying you're getting straight A's the whole time until a particular point. You can get by, or even better than get by, until things start to get a bit more abstract, or until you have to actually start relying on yourself to do things, right? So. So that you find that in year 11 and 12, like when actually the work kind of changes, there's more self-reliance, the things that you're learning are more abstract, they're different ways of thinking. So you can't just learn by osmosis anymore, right? And so, and if you do get past that, then if you start uni, holy shit, that's a whole nother ball game, right? Where you're completely self-reliant. People don't tell you when, you've got, I'll rephrase, you got 4 units, they don't give a shit about each other. They're like, your exam is on this day and this day and this day, and each of the units, and you're like, oh my god, they're like, there's 3 on one week and there's 1 the week after, and then the assessments are scattered throughout the semester, and they, and
the structure's all over the place.
Oh
isn't
man,
it?
and so but you have to self-manage all of that, right? And not to mention, it's all the self-directed, and also getting there, and there's a whole bunch of other moving parts.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you often see the wheels start kind of falling off then as well, right? Or if somebody's like, started a completely different career or work that they haven't done before, that might be a little bit parallel. So it's all of those types of things. And, like when I look back on my life, I'm just like, shit, it makes sense, all right? Like, school wasn't my jam. I was a bit of a naughty kid, and, did other things that would, where I would find ways to stimulate my brain. And and that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking about impulse control stuff. I'm thinking about regulation, emotion regulation stuff. I'm thinking about all of that type of thing. And then they're all kind of hallmark.
It's so interesting, isn't it?
But they also overlap with other things, and so that's what's really important to kind of make sure that there's real diagnostic clarity around that. To prevent misdiagnosis, and also to make sure that there's appropriate diagnosis.
And I think it's so like that's a topic that we could probably talk about for ages, right? So, I mean, there's so much depth to it, isn't there? Really, it really is, and it's really interesting. And you mentioned as well, like the transitions about that from like and you started your own business then. So we obviously started working as, and then you mentioned earlier before as well about I think a lot of business owners talk about, when they go into that survival mode, and that this has to be done. And I feel like a lot of people that we've spoken to on Rebel Radio, and also just in general, other business owners that I know, that's the situation. They like either they're just in it, and then they have to make it work at that point. Did you think that you probably were already self-efficient in that sense, that you could just start your own business, and then you're like, well, I've kind of done.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that.
Yeah.
No.
I just thought like you've got more experience in that sense, right?
No way.
Yeah, you're like, so you got this running a business is nothing. I mean,
So it's just like
how did it happen? How did you start?
One of those intuition things, right? So it's the same reason why we ended up buying a house. It's the same reason like for a whole bunch of things. Like one this is in the middle of COVID, right?
Right.
2020.
The middle of it as well, like.
Yeah. I woke up one morning, I was just like, got to open a clinic.
Crazy.
This is just going to happen now.
It has to do it.
Yeah. And so, I was like, it's time.
When was this though?
I'm just like, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. It's one of my favorite, actually, things. Have you seen, there's a movie called Field of Dreams. It's with like Kevin Costner. It's an old movie, right?
Yeah.
And I watched that as a kid, man, like years and years and years ago. I should watch it again, actually. And that, I don't know why, but that phrase just stuck with me, right? If you build it, they will come. I'm like, I will build this and it will be all right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, maybe I still want to kind of be close to the hospital because of the relationships there and all that stuff. So I was like looking around here, and I'll tell you, around here was like a ghost town. It was crazy. I've never seen any place like that, right?
Yeah.
And there was a whole bunch of vacancies, and this was like my favorite place. This place we're in
it's
right
amazing.
now.
It's a great spot.
I had to work hard for it, I can tell you. But there were properties everywhere, and when I first, so anyway, got through that, ended up signing the lease.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this would have been in, I reckon, October. So October, and so sorry.
Tell us. Don't hold on to jokes.
October 2020. It took the lease. It started on November. In November, it started the lease.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a homeless person, like literally sleeping in that on the front porch there, and I left a note. There was a mattress and everything, right? Like a full setup.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah. And I was just like, I'm really sorry, man. Like, I need to move into this property. I wrote a note, left some money. I'm just like. So then my wife and I, we eloped. In Margaret River. We were going to have a full wedding and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We eloped in Margaret River, and we had a trip planned with a small group of friends already. We were going, that was okay. Well, let's just do that, right?
Yeah.
That was in December. No, that was in January the 5th, okay? So, took the lease in November, rushed around like an insane person, buying furniture for the clinic, including like a reception area and everything else, and then went away in December, like 3 weeks later, for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Got married on January the 5th, and then opened the doors on January the 8th.
Wow.
Kind of like, freaking whirling dervish, man. Like I was going all over Perth, picking up furniture, and like, fuck, I'm like, I can't open like with nothing in it, right?
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate, I've got an amazing like clinical team lead. She's like my 2IC. She's been here from the beginning. David, Rome, my wife's a clin psych as well.
Yeah.
And she's only here like 1 day a week or something. But there was like basically, kind of like 4 of us.
Yeah.
Just had our own referrals, as they kind of came in, didn't have reception, didn't have any of that stuff. And I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen is this, right? That, if I didn't have anybody and I just had to work myself, could I hold the lease for as long as I needed to, right? And the answer was yes. I'd have to work, hard, but
you could do it.
But I could do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so that's it. That's my, sort of fallback. Not a very good fallback, by the way.
But it's like it's a saving grace, right? So that's the last. If that has to happen, it has to happen.
Unless something happened to me, which doesn't think about that.
Yeah. What were you thinking about? Because a lot of people go into business kind of accidentally sometimes. Like the people working as a subcontractor for a little bit, and then they kind of go, I can probably just do this by myself. As if you kind of got the clinic space and you had people starting with you straight away. And
well, my vision was this. So I wanted to create a place where people were like, it was a like real collegial environment.
Yeah.
Where people had the opportunity to grow, to learn, to to really grow together. And so that was my dream from the beginning.
Yeah.
And
that's like the therapist, just everyone in the team.
Yeah,
that would
just
be
my whole team.
Yeah.
And so right from the beginning, I was like, no, we'll close the clinic from 12 till 1. Everyone can have lunch together. If they want. It's really important. Connection is really important.
That's great. I haven't heard that much. Like people closing their actual business at that lunchtime time frame. That's definitely not a thing that happens a lot in healthcare, especially.
Yeah, and like whether it's sustainable like for the next 10 years or whatever.
Of course,
not sure, right? And people have different preferences, but it is still right now as it is.
Yeah.
And it's really important because people will, and not the same people will sit there for a whole hour, right?
No.
But they'll come in at 10 past, and we'll have lunch, we'll tell some shit jokes, we'll have a debrief or whatever, and we've got riddles on the board every day, or something else, and the practice manager. She's awesome. You know, Larissa, she like really thinks about the team. So you know, tomorrow there's someone's birthday, so you know she's made a whole bunch of stuff for us all to have together.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
That's great.
and so like having that's really
Yeah.
been really important to me, and I suppose that was the motivation. Really.
I actually want to ask, like, ANIMA, like, is there a ANIMA? Sorry,
That's right.
ANIMA.
Yeah.
What does it stand for? Anything? Is that, or is it?
Yeah, it's a Jungian term actually.
Okay.
So it's like it means soul or life.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was coming up with names, I'd written like so many names.
Yeah.
That was the first name that I wrote
Interesting.
on the list.
That was the first one.
Yeah, the first name that I wrote on the list, and I went through. And I was just like, you know, and ended up with that name.
Yeah.
In the end, I was just like, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
And you've obviously like transitioned from, well, not transition, you're still running the business and everything, but you're doing a lot of like training. You do a lot of public speaking and a lot of courses, and I think you're going to Greece later on in the year as well.
Yeah.
How did that kind of start happening? And was that also like part of the business side of things to kind of grow the brand, or or was it just like natural, just kind of happened?
Yeah, it's just like honestly, like the whole thing about like so if you just go back to the ADHD stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know what I noticed was so like you know after my diagnosis and after you know having medication and stuff, you know we see complex patients here. We've got like lots of you know childhood historical stuff and you know complex trauma and all that kind of stuff, personality stuff, and so of course after the ADHD diagnosis, I was just like hyper focused on understanding everything about it, right? Because I needed to know about everything. And so you know I was looking at the neurobiology, I was looking at you know all the comorbidities and like you name it, like I was just like obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And so that's probably not healthy, but anyway, but it kind of helped me because I was just like, well, you know, it's really interesting because I'm looking at all this dysregulation stuff and looking at the impulse control problems and relationship issues and you know all this kind of stuff in the people that I'm seeing. And I was just like, well, maybe they've got actually undiagnosed ADHD, right? And then you know all the additional trauma stuff is like kind of sits on top of that, right?
Yeah.
And so then I was just like, then I'd be you know calling the psychiatrist and saying, you know, in terms of you know I think this person's got undiagnosed ADHD. Can we trial them on stimulants or you know just see how it goes? You know.
Yeah.
And it was great most of the time, right? And you know, you have people with like you know BPD or you know like really long-term interpersonal problems. You just see that they you know really kind of became much more self-regulated, right? And that's really really important in interpersonal relationships because I'm not being reactionary, right? I'm not feeling like the impulse to to say something or do something, right?
Yeah.
And you know we've done a ton of work already, you know, trauma processing and all that kind of stuff. And this was kind of a really great addition because then trauma processing also became easier and all of that kind of stuff. And so then I just became obsessed with that. I really need to know about what's going on here, right? And so that's how the talk stuff started. You know, I gave a talk at Fiona Stanley. Someone invited me, you know, psychiatrist Way invited me to come and talk at Fiona Stanley, and that was during COVID as well. And I was shitting myself because I'm like I've literally been obsessed with this for the last, you know, 8 months or 9 months or something, and I've like tried to learn everything about it. And I'm going to go to an auditorium full of freaking psychiatrists and doctors and tell them about it, right?
So, was that a bit of imposter syndrome? You think? Yeah, like
massively. But it's just like, well, you just got to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I did, and it wasn't like amazing, right? But it was fine.
Yeah.
And that was okay. And it was during COVID. I had to wear a mask. That bit I hated.
Yeah, that sucks.
But then I asked a question at the end. I was just like, hey, listen, what about you know, why aren't they prescribing like stimulant medication for patients with borderline personality disorder, right? Because they activate, like they touch on the same mechanism, neural mechanisms around impulse control and emotion regulation, you know, inhibition, all that kind of stuff. And you know, I think I got a few funny looks. I was just posing a question.
Yeah. But
anyway, a few years later, there's some like actual research papers that came out. That actually was like, why aren't we treating borderline personality disorder with like stimulant medication? I'm like, yes.
And how did the like speeches? Yes, we're wrong. Hey, look.
5 minutes? Okay.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes. It's a real quick one on that though,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's interesting. Because like, how does like, because obviously people would love to do public speaking, or they're shit scared of it usually, but they want to take their game to the next level as well and go to like, you're like doing actual public speaking in other countries and stuff. How did that eventuate? How did you start getting into that other, like, and getting invited and getting, to
Well, you
these
just got
other
to be
places?
courageous.
Yeah.
If you love something, if you're passionate about it, you believe in it. And like for me, like honestly, the biggest driver was just like, I feel like everyone needs to know about this thing, And it's the same as like the parts and chair work psychotherapy workshops that I do.
Yeah.
I love working like that.
Yeah.
Because it's so powerful and it's so transformative.
Yeah.
I've seen it, and I started that journey with like Scott Kellogg and Amanda Garcia, a few years ago.
Yeah.
When I did the training, I'm like, what is this, right? That was the trigger for me to do those trainings, those like 1 and 2 day trainings that I do around Australia and stuff, because it's so powerful, and like you just want everyone to know about it, right? It's like when you go to see a movie, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, that movie was the best. Like,
Yeah.
I love that movie. Or
Yeah.
you go to a restaurant and you're like, fuck, that was the best, whatever that was. And you just want to talk about it forever, right? Because you want everyone to enjoy it in the same way or get the benefits of it. It's the same thing, right? So,
I get you.
so then, you just kind of, put yourself out there, and then eventually people will be sort of like, hey,
That's amazing.
I've heard about this guy.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's interesting. No, it's really good, and you are right. Like putting yourself out there, obviously, then you start getting more and more exposed to other things, right? Think about yourself, I guess, from the kid who was like, going to the news agency and getting all the like, human anatomies, to like, looking back now on that kid and thinking to where you are right now, like, I guess like how you reflect on your journey, and obviously there's obviously heaps more to come, but I guess to this point, how do you feel about yourself?
I feel like, I guess, I feel like I'm very, 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 very lucky, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I've been very lucky and very fortunate to have, things happen at the right times, and, the right people at the right times, because, man, my life could have looked very, very, very different, very different, very easily. I could be in jail, like, easily. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you think you're lucky though, or do you think you make your own luck a little bit as well?
I think maybe a bit of both, right? But like I mean, those people haven't been lucky as well. Like I think there's a lot of people who,
True.
So I'm very grateful, like, for everything. Things aren't easy sometimes. Obviously, that's just life. We had some challenging things happen last year, and that kind of continued to this year. But it's okay. Like, when after this conversation, I'm like thinking about it. Like, I know things will be all right.
Yeah. Life moves on, eh?
Things will be okay.
Yeah. For sure.
And so I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for the people in my life. Very grateful for, my wife, my dog, my people here at this clinic. I love them. And my family and everyone else. Like, and so
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And how's ANIMA going? How's like business and everything? What's the next steps for you and your work as well?
Yeah, thanks. Let me just think. That's a bit of a mixed bag, that question.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Like things are great. If I look at it globally, things are amazing. Okay. If I look at it in a more nuanced way, there are challenges associated with change. Okay, and so when I say that, like, when there's growth, there's friction, because what was working before might not work in the same way now, and so I think right now we're just kind of like readjusting to what what we're going to do in the next 5 years, 10 years, and so and that's been great. Everyone's been awesome. We're just kind of like moving in the same direction. And we moving also now towards sort of, I'm doing my own trainings around the parts and chair work stuff. I'm still doing talks for, the intersection between like complex trauma, neurodivergent schemas, that kind of thing. That's what I'm going to do in Greece. And then also we're moving into doing organizational training. So workplace training for neurodiversity, affirming organizations to help leaders and teams understand how to work with neurodivergent like
That's a
staff
huge area of work as well, wouldn't it? Like
Yeah.
as more healthcare professionals are getting into, you start to see that neurodivergent is becoming a big topic within the teams and within companies as well. So that's massive.
For sure. And like trauma informed organizations,
Yeah.
right? Like if organizations are aware and they're neuro-affirming, man, the entire organization flourishes, right? You understand people's communication styles, you understand how people work, how they prefer to work with each other in teams.
Yeah.
It's a real advantage because, one person might like a quick conversation, right? Another person might be absolutely terrified by that, right? But if we're doing taking a neuronormative approach or, neurotypical approach to everybody, then, that's where you see friction starting because it's just like, well, one person's this way and one person's another way. So
Definitely. No, fascinating. What lessons or what advice could you give to someone, obviously, because this Rebel Radio is really about, it's about leaders in allied health, right? But it's also about people who are starting their degrees or who are just starting their careers as well, and listening to this. And what advice have you got? Because obviously your pathway would be very like tailored to yourself, and everyone's is, right? But people would resonate with a lot of your story. So what is some of the like advice you'd give to someone who's kind of like starting off in their careers or going to university? I guess what advice would you give to someone in that kind of early career?
Yeah, I suppose I'd say be tenacious, be curious, have fun, and let others help you.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that one.
It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah,
and it's okay to let other people help you.
That's a really good one. I think that's just a human thing, isn't it? We just don't like people. We're a bit too proud in that.
Yeah.
We think that we can all do it ourselves sometimes when you need help. Dr. Oz, it's been a pleasure, man. Honestly, thank you.
Mate.
Obviously, I've known you. We've obviously talked so much, and I've always wanted you on this show. I didn't know when I was going to get you on, so I really appreciate you being on here, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you.